All right. So George R. R. Martin's A Feast for Crows is a wild ride. I uh, I don't want to say it's my favorite of the books so far because I love A Game of Thrones. And I do think Feast has some issues. It gets a little bit carried away in all the new point of view characters we're introduced to. But it is really good. So Feast picks up right after the previous book with Tywin Lannister dead and Tyrion on the run. Everything's in chaos. We have Stannis Baratheon at the wall, and Arya's run off to Bravos to join up with the Dark Brotherhood. Sorry, wrong franchise. I mean, the Faceless Men. There's some bonker stuff going on in Dorne and the Iron Islands that we're introduced to, and there's magic and wizards and some pseudo Targaryen esque edgelords. And Feast is really weird for that reason. There's a lot going on, and I don't think George really knew the best way to introduce it to us. Uh, it didn't seem like he was very certain of how to manage it all. Um, so I guess let's start with the story that kind of sort of I wasn't as interested in as the rest of the story, uh, and that would be Dorne. It's not that I didn't like the Dorne storyline in Feast for Crows, but I found myself wondering why it needed to be there. Why we couldn't have just been told what was happening. He liked to do that in previous books, is have whispers and rumors and us not really know what's going on in certain places. I think I think that's actually kind of a valuable tool of his. But so basically, what's going on is there's this sort of power struggle between the sand snakes and the clever, old, and cautious Duran Martell, right? Sand snakes are really cool. They're awesome, and Duran is a planner. He's cautious. He's careful. Uh, and these characters are wild and amazing to read about. But it's a little like too little, too late, almost. But I mean, it's been 4 books and we still haven't met Howland Reed. And yet now we've got the cautious, scout-ridden Duran Martell and his big Norvoshi captain of the guards, this Ario Hota, who's married to his axe, by the way, like literally. Uh, anyway, so we're introduced to this chess game going on between Duran and the Sand Snakes and Duran's daughter, Ariane, who's basically a sand snake herself. And they are basically fighting over what to do about the Lannisters. The Lannisters killed Elia Martell like 15 years ago, and they've yet to do anything about it, or so it seems. Ariane is a person of action. She thinks that they can act, they can do something, because her plan is to crown Myrcella Baratheon as Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, following this Dornish law that the elder child inherits regardless of gender. And because Myrcella is currently in Dorne, and a ward of the Dornish, thanks to Tyrion, uh, they're going to try and put Myrcella on the throne. Or try to. Ariane makes some careful plans herself, sort of taking after her father. She joins forces with these Roynish river people and some knights and one Gerald the Dane, the Dark Star, who's a freaking relative of Arthur Dane, the greatest knight who ever lived. Only Darkstar is a rat bastard. And as I said, an edgelord. I mean, seriously, I am of the night, and oh, I'm so moody and cool, and I wear dark clothes and armor in the middle of the desert like a fool. Um, yeah, so things go sour for that plan really quickly. They get ratted out by someone, and in this desperate attempt at trying to salvage at least his part of the scheme, Darkstar slashes little Marcella's face open, intending to kill her and cause a war with the Lannisters. He wants them to invade and get caught in the mountain passes and then get decimated, which is actually kind of a good plan. Uh, and in all honesty, I think Ariane's plan was also smart. Um, but I can't condone what Darkstar did because, Marcella is awesome and a little cherub like her brother Tommen and utterly unlike her brother Joffrey. And even the original Ariane's plan, I've grown to realize, was ill conceived. Because we're finally told by Duran that Dorne isn't as wealthy or as strong as he would have the rest of the world believe, which was just a ploy, really, a rumor he created to keep people from invading. Uh, and his real plan had been to work a scheme where Ariane is married off to Viserys Targaryen, Dany's brother. And yeah, that didn't work out, obviously. And it wouldn't have worked out either. But I can see what he was thinking. Uh, Duran is smart. He's a clever guy, and he has a new plan. He intends to work out an alliance with Dany and try and get her dragons. Uh, I'm currently reading A Dance with Dragons, and yeah, that plan it's underway. Uh, Never let that be said otherwise. And Duran is clever for coming up with all these schemes. Uh, he's a good character, and they're all good characters. But I can't help but wonder uh, why they're here, right? Because it doesn't seem particularly relevant in the end. Uh, it doesn't really seem to be affecting the fate of, say, the Starks or the Lannisters or Daenerys quite yet. Even Daenerys. Uh, I guess we'll see. Um, and we'll see if that bloody bastard Darkstar gets what's coming to him. And speaking of bloody bastards, and for that matter, weird edgelords, there's another seemingly irrelevant plot line going on in Feast, uh, and that would be the Ironborn. Okay, in all honesty, they seem about as relevant as the Dornish to start off with, but I just freaking love them, and I think they are going to become more relevant. It seems like George is setting up a new villain. Uh, but yeah, I just love the Ironborn and their drowned cult and all that. I eat it up. So we get to meet Victarion Greyjoy, who is another character who I didn't really know much about. He didn't exist on the show, and I find that to be a crime against nature because this freaking madman with a tentacled kraken helmet and full plate armor is just his chapters don't feel like the same story. Uh, it's like you're reading an old Pulp Fiction story, like a Robert E. Howard story or something. Victarion is like a Conan the Barbarian villain, all grim and dour and kind of slow-witted. And I guess he murdered his wife with his bare hands, and he's just okay. Look, I don't like him as a person, but as a reader and a writer, I freaking love this character. I love to read about this sick and twisted monster of a man. And he's not even the main attraction of the great as far as the Greyjoys are concerned. Because sweeping in from the far east is none other than Euron effing Greyjoy, the Crow's Eye, this freaking nightmare demon pirate from hell. Uh, on that dragon show that everybody liked for a hot minute, Euron was basically like an evil Jack Sparrow. In this, he's closer to Davy Jones if Davy Jones were 100 times more frightening. Uh, Euron rocks up in his ship, the Silence, with a crew of mutes and wizards and all sorts. And he's dressed all in black, this ridiculous sable cloak, and he wears an eye patch. So he has this smiling eye which he shows to the world, this blue eye that he shows to the world, and then he has his blood eye which he keeps hidden. This isn't that terrifying? Uh, at the King's Moot, where the Ironborn decide who should lead them, Euron sounds this awful ancient Valyrian war horn, all black with glyphs on it, and it has this fiery aura around it, and it kind of glows. Um, Dragonbinder, this horn is called, and it binds dragons, interestingly enough, according to Euron. He plucked it from the smoldering ruins of old Valyria, where no one is supposed to be able to survive, and he intends to use it to bind a dragon to his will. What kind of magical nonsense is this, George? I love it, don't get me wrong, but I think George has got some Dragonlance in with my Song of Ice and Fire. I'm not really complaining, but yeah, this Euron is a little bit different than evil Jack Sparrow, isn't he? Uh, he's more like some sort of weird Norse god. Uh, and while all of this is spiraling out of control, at the heart of it all is Cersei and Jaime and Brienne, of course. We can't forget Brienne out on her quest to save Sansa Stark. Yeah, poor Brienne. She tries so hard. She has this slow, plodding quest through the Riverlands, following every wrong lead possible. Brienne isn't exactly dumb, I don't think. She's kind of slow, and bless her heart, it pains me every time she makes a mistake. She she makes the right observations, I found, but typically with the wrong timing. She considers the Vale and she considers River Run. There are times where she almost has a run-in with Arya, I'm pretty sure. Uh, and she's always one step behind, and only ever manages to be reunited with her old friends, the Bloody Mummers, who she hacks to pieces, by the way, I'm pleased to say. It comes at a price because she kills this guy Rorge, a nasty piece of work. Uh, and then Biter the cannibal jumps on her and like bites off half her face. I mean, it's not pretty, but she does get saved by the Brotherhood without banners. Only, uh, the Brotherhood without banners is currently being led by Lady Stoneheart, undead Cat Stark, full of vengeance. She has Brienne put on trial for joining up with the Lannisters, right? So Jaime gave her Oathkeeper, the Valyrian sword, to help her out in finding Sansa. But now the Brotherhood sees Oathkeeper, and they're all like, "Hey, Lannister!" And they're going to kill her now. Her and the little boy Podrick, who she ran into on the road, and they've been traveling together for a while. And they give her a choice: either die or hunt down Jaime Lannister and kill him. Uh, or get him killed. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, she chooses to save Podrick and herself, and I'm not sure how that's going to play out. The book ended soon after. Uh, Brienne takes her oath seriously, though. So the only way she can, like, not kill Jaime is to prove that he's changed and maybe bring one or two of the Stark girls to Stoneheart. Easy as pie, right? Well, the part about Jaime being redeemed, that might be easy. He goes through a lot in this book, coming to terms with who he was and who he wishes to be. Okay, he does threaten to trebuchet a baby at the walls of Riverrun, but he feels really bad about it afterwards, guys. He stays charming and he stays clever, but he loses a great deal of his rage and hostility. He has to be reasonable and he has to be smart to solve his problems. And hopefully that's going to be what happens with the whole Stoneheart situation. Uh, and speaking of stone hearts, I know, great segue. Uh, Cersei is, well, this is the first time we've got a Cersei chapter, and it is enlightening. Uh, we've always been told that Cersei isn't very smart, primarily by Tyrion. But up until this point, we're given this impression of her being clever, of her being very competent and dangerous. And in this, we're shown that she isn't. In Feast for Crows, she is a sad, paranoid woman who's afraid of every shadow. And she burns down the Tower of the Hand because she's afraid that Tyrion might be hiding in the walls. She's kind of gone crazy. And we're told about this prophecy and how the little brother is going to kill her, and how her children are going to die, and it's this horrible shadow hanging over her. She's trying to prevent it, trying desperately. And yeah, she isn't having a good time. She, for a while, she thinks she is, but eventually, the Sept has her imprisoned after she allows the Sept to start arming soldiers, uh, which is, of course, a bit of irony there. And her council betrays her. Right? They put Kevin Lannister in charge of the realm, and Aurane Waters, the bastard of Driftmark, this guy who she put in charge of the fleet. He steals the fleet and runs off with it to the Stepstones to become a pirate king, leaving the city bankrupt and bleeding and without anyone to defend it. Uh, while Cersei rots in a cell beneath the Sept. It's a mad, crazy time with all these wizards and warlocks and Eurons planning an attack on Old Town, and Cersei's imprisoned, and the Knight of Flowers is off dying on Dragonstone. Everybody's at each other's throats, while the mad Greyjoy Pirate King and the Wildlings and the Boltons and all the other horrible, horrible people get to have their way with the world. There is no strong king, no one to lead the people, and it shows. But who's going to lead them? Dany? Jon? Stannis? I would love it if it were Stannis, but I have my doubts. And I don't think we're going to get that answer in Dance. I don't think I'm going to get that answer. But there is some weird stuff going on currently. Some surprise characters, and one specifically who, well, I think he might turn out to be very, very important regarding the fate of Westeros. And he just showed up in book 5. I guess I'll see you then.